Okay, I might make a start so we can keep to time. This is the last concurrent session of the afternoon, and I have great pleasure of welcoming Wendy Hoyle, who is the Associate Director of Library Services at the University of Tasmania Library. Wendy is the project sponsor for the Special and Rare project and supervises the project manager. In early 2016, the University of Tasmania Library was successful in obtaining a small research infrastructure grant to facilitate the selection and implementation of an electronic archive management system in order to make the library's unique primary source material globally discoverable online. This paper will outline the extraordinary journey that the library went on with externally recruited project manager, a core group of enthusiastic academics, and a wider Tasmanian GLAM sector partners. Welcome, Wendy.
Last one of the day. I actually don't have a lot of slides. This is the only one with any actual information on it. I'm just going to have lots of pictures about our journey, that represent our journey. So thank you very much for coming today. I might start with that one. A significant proportion of the University of Tasmania's library's special and rare collections are not easily discoverable online, as they've received little or no detailed description. The research potential of these collections has remained largely untapped. Tasmania is a state rich with historical information and artefacts, located in known and unknown locations across the state, in both our large institutions and in many of the small community-run museums and historical societies that exist across the state. Tasmania is also a small state. Collaboration offers many advantages. Being small, people at each organisation are known to each other, and there is an understanding of the mutual constraints, and collaboration is so much easier to arrange. Under our current Vice-Chancellor, the university had begun to recognise the importance of its varied cultural collections to the university's research advantage and reputation. A University Museum of Arts and Sciences bringing together all our collections had been widely discussed. With a spotlight on cultural collections, the timing was right for the library to seek funding to select and implement an online archival description and content management system to enable our unique material to become globally discoverable online. Collaboration with our internal partners had begun early in the process through a series of meetings with identified academic supporters where the potential for future research projects and grants had been identified. Concurrently, the Tasmanian Archive and Heritage Office and the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery had begun to look at replacing their outdated archival management systems. TAHO and TMAG have been working together with the intent to create a shared discovery system to enable seamless discovery across the whole state. Both organisations had already submitted their own and joint bids for similar projects. They readily agreed to support the library with this particular bid. In 2015, the library submitted our successful bid to the university's Research Infrastructure Committee. We and our partners believed that we would be able to identify something that would do everything we needed in one system, and this belief was to dictate our direction for the first 3 months of the project. The committee provisionally approved a grant over a 2-year period to support the following objectives: to investigate, recommend and implement the required system, to plan and prioritise the population and or migration of the chosen system and potential migration of items currently in the library's open access repository, ensure adopted systems had capacity and flexibility for potential growth and diversity, and ensure interoperability with other relevant university systems and repositories and potential interoperability with systems from the other Tasmanian cultural institutions. The project was due to start in 2016 but was beset by delays from the start. An externally recruited project manager with extensive project management experience didn't commence until May 2016. The project was due to be completed by the end of the year, but we were given 1 month's extension, leaving us 8 months with Christmas in between. A steering committee was established which included the university's Professor of Digital Humanities, the Arts Faculty's Associate Dean Research, the manager of the university's e-research infrastructure, as well as senior representatives from both TMAG and TAHO. The author was the project sponsor and supervised the project manager. Out of scope was any content migration other than an agreed pilot, implementation of the proposed system into areas other than that agreed pilot, and any related potential projects identified throughout the process, and there were many. 4 broad areas were clearly articulated as part of the project plan as being essential for any system that we selected: archival and preservation, research, a quality user experience, and interoperability, particularly with the university systems and repositories, and hopefully with the other Tasmanian cultural institutions. From the beginning, the project manager had a much larger vision. She saw the project as an opportunity to create something exciting for the whole state of Tasmania. Engagement from within the university and from both the wider Tasmanian sector and beyond was strong and enthusiastic. The project timing coincided with a number of other initiatives across the Australian GLAM sector, including GLAM Peak's Digital Access to Collections project, which we contributed to. Another initiative was the work being led by TMAG. They had engaged Gaia Resources to work on the Tasmanian Collection Pilot Project, which was looking at how to create a common aggregated digital entry to Tasmania's cultural collections and how this could contribute to the development of cultural tourism across the state. The library was involved with the consultation phase of their project and agreed to collaborate on a joint project pilot. Our project demanded an ability to think at a very high strategic and broad level, and to be able to ingest and retain enormous amounts of information. One of the project manager's valuable skills became very clear early on, and that was the ability to be able to seek out people from anywhere who she thought would be able to provide that important bit of information that the project required at any time. So successful was she that as the environmental scan progressed, there was a danger of scope creep due to the sheer volume of information being shared. The project began to aspire to not only what could be achieved in the first year or 2 years, but beyond 10 years. 50+ organisations in all were consulted, with many offering documentation and extensive responses to inquiries. Enthusiasm spread, generating a belief in a vision that could lead to a number of associated projects. A roadmap for the future was being developed, and it was big and it was exciting. However, this enthusiasm didn't necessarily filter down to the library staff. Our library has only a small team. There are 6 portfolio areas, and 3 of these portfolio areas intersected with this project: collections, discovery and systems. The project manager was the only person employed to work exclusively on the project initially, the assumption being that the special and rare librarian would be deployed and additional casual staff would be recruited depending on need and budget. The library's special and rare collections is staffed by 2 part-time staff members, a librarian at 60% and a library officer at 50%. The team is led by a senior librarian in collections who also has responsibility for the wider print collections, and in 2016 a major review of the library's subscriptions. Due to circumstances beyond the library's control, both special and rare staff were absent from their roles for most of 2016. The position of librarian was backfilled on a temporary basis from elsewhere in the library for the duration of the project. Internal capacity to support the project was limited. The project also exposed major skill gaps within the library itself. There hadn't been an archivist employed by the library for decades. It became clear that not only would there need to be a technical implementation, but we would also require a completely different way of thinking about the collection and potentially the whole service. Capacity issues were not restricted to the library. Steering committee meetings were challenging to schedule, and it was also difficult at times for members to respond to requests for feedback and information. Across the board, the challenges and pressures that were brought to bear and all involved needed understanding and careful management. Read between the lines with that one. In August, the goalpost shifted. It became clear that there would be no assured funding for the second year, and we could no longer even consider a proprietary system. The project would need to look instead to open source, and that solution would need to be implemented by the end of January. As the project sponsor, I had initially taken a hands-off approach to the project beyond weekly update meetings and providing advice with navigating through the university's processes. More direct involvement in the project was now required, particularly around being an intermediary and a negotiator between the project management and the library staff. Also by insisting that the project manager delegate some tasks by employing some casual support. Finalising and getting sign-off on our solution design document from the library to a point where it could go to the steering committee had turned into a series of extremely difficult meetings and a major stumbling block to progress. Staff felt that there was too much focus on the bigger picture and not enough on what we were trying to select and implement, the thing as we started to call it. A lack of trust in the capabilities and capacity of the project manager had developed and relationships were close to breaking down completely. It's hard looking back to express how difficult this period actually was. A lot of time was spent managing relationships in order to ensure that the project didn't simply fall over. Casual support was eventually agreed to, focusing primarily on the pilot. This included working with one of the library's key donors, whose 100,000 strong Tasmanian images collection were to be an integral part of the joint pilot. The project manager began to accept the constraints and refocus the project on what we could afford and what could be implemented within the designated time frame, and the library finally began to see a solution emerging. By the October meeting of the steering committee, a report was ready for approval. The selection of an open source solution developed in Canada, Artefactual's Access to Memory, or ATOM. ATOM is an archival description and workflow tool based on international archival standards and is used extensively throughout Canada and the US. In Australia, ATOM is the platform used by the Australian National University's Butlin Archive, the State Archives of Western Australia, and is currently being implemented at the University of Melbourne's Percy Granger Museum, amongst others. Staff of all three organisations provided invaluable advice and documentation for us as part of this project. So I've just got a couple of slides here which show some of the work we've been doing putting information into ATOM. ATOM is scalable as a portal and repository for multiple university cultural collections to approximately 1 million records. Is file import and export friendly and will support multiple repositories. The software is web-based and has a strong user community which offers continuous active functionality development. The steering committee also accepted the recommendation for a post-project roadmap to subsequently implement Amica as the discovery exhibition tool overlaying ATOM, as well as investigating a geo-mapping tool at the request of our academics with a preference for GeoServer. And finally, Artefactual's Archivematica for digital preservation. A combination of solutions that haven't been, as far as we're aware, been implemented anywhere else. The technical implementation of ATOM was completed in November, a joint collaboration between the library and the university systems staff and Gaia Resources, with the business implementation continuing through December and January. A senior archivist from the University of Melbourne was seconded as a consultant. He worked closely, at times face-to-face, but primarily from Melbourne, with the special and rare collection staff, to establish processes and procedures, as well as supporting them with training. The training included the gaining of a basic understanding of archival material and how to deal with its nuances. Part of the consultant's brief was to ensure that material was ready for the pilot. We continued to work closely with our colleagues at TMAG despite the unfortunate delays experienced by their project. From November, the project employed 2 casual librarians to make recommendations around Amica. The following slides will show an example of an exhibition that we're currently working on. Both Amica Classic and the new beta version Amica S were tested and a report prepared. Amica S potentially providing a better fit for the needs of larger institutions that have the requirement to deploy many Amica sites from one installation. As well, there were indications of improved functionality for online exhibitions and better interoperability with other systems, including linked open data. The recommendations to proceed with the implementation of Amica S were signed off in early February and implementation handed over to our discovery team. Oops. I think I pressed the wrong button. Sorry, my fault. Just back to our last one. Over the final 2 days of January, we hosted functions to thank all our collaborative partners. The consultant and special and rare team provided presentations to the library's executive group, and the documentation was handed over to the library. The amount of project documentation was considerable, but importantly included priorities, procedures, contact lists, as well as a roadmap for the future if funding opportunities presented themselves. Go Live was scheduled to coincide with a demonstration to the steering committee at the project closure meeting planned for February. After an intensive and concentrated 8 months, including a hectic final month to make the best use of the remaining budget, the project manager handed over to the library through a series of meetings with relevant staff and finished up. With the conclusion of the official project, the library established an internal working group to progress any outstanding issues and tasks remaining. A new post-project issues log identified 25 issues in the first meeting. The group focused firstly on setting clear priorities and timelines for ongoing work, how to progress the pilot and the Go Live. Further demonstrations have since been provided to the steering committee and academic staff that have supported the project, as well as the wider library. Written reports have been provided to the chair of the Research Infrastructure Committee and the University's Cultural Collections Committee. We continue to work closely with our colleagues in IT services whose support throughout this project continues to be invaluable, patient and proactive in so many ways. There's still a lot to be sorted out, but the group is now very engaged. They feel more in control since the project officially finished and are positive about the outcomes that can be achieved. A triage model for ongoing technical support has been established, with first resort being the extensive documentation available for Atom. This will be followed by consulting the Atom users Google group that has been established for support questions. Finally, we have pre-purchased technical support from Gaia Resources and archival process support from Record Keeping Innovation to assist the library with post-implementation activities until the end of 2017. Limited resources will mean that significant progress in the populating of Atom will be a challenge. There are ongoing discussions about the knowledge being shared more widely than just the special and rare collection staff to have other library staff assist, depending on other work priorities. Enthusiasm is strong across the wider team to be involved following the demonstrations. They see this as new and exciting and not business as usual work. It is also critical for the library to establish a viable volunteer program, and this will be a priority for 2017. We continue the close liaison with other Tasmanian cultural institutions as their delayed projects progress. Steering committee members have agreed to meet 3 or 4 times a year to continue to pursue ongoing potential collaborative opportunities across the state. We now have clear priorities as to what we want to do next strategically, even if no additional funding is forthcoming. The work on this project represented a cross-institutional, large-scale collaborative approach to the discoverability of digital information assets and collections relating to Tasmania's cultural and historical heritage, with a particular focus on implementing research infrastructure for local research advantage and cultural tourism. The core group of academic supporters that had been assembled had been engaged and excited about the library's vision, and relationships developed will continue to reap benefits for both us and them into the future. Following the project closure, the library was forwarded a copy of a proposed new minor in digital humanities, which will utilise the library's special and rare collections. Potentially this could provide pathways into honours and postgraduate work, equipping students with skills and training in areas of current and emerging university research strengths, as well as the creation and analysis of big data. At this point, this very first stage of post-implementation has been completed, but we've been unable to go live due to issues beyond our control, which we hope will be resolved very soon. And as you can imagine, I was pretty disappointed to not being able to demonstrate live today. Material is gradually being entered into Atom, and by the end of May, we hope to have 3 online exhibitions curated in Amica so we can further promote what we have achieved. Training in the new system and processes is underway across our wider team. In hindsight, we should have thought more carefully, not only about our resourcing requirements for this project and its impact on our small team, but also what exactly it was we were trying to do. Despite project management training, we didn't really understand the role of an external project manager. Our projects had always been managed internally previously. Despite the challenges, however, we feel comfortable that we have, or we are close to achieving, all our original objectives. We had set our sights on one solution, but it wasn't one, but a suite of solutions that were delivered in the end, as well as a roadmap for the future, a development for both library and developed for both the library and our collaborators. An amazing project manager who wanted to make sure that she saw us over the line, no matter how difficult the project was at times, in the end delivered something we believe is quite unique. 50 plus organisations and individuals from around the country and abroad consulted, all showing an amazing willingness to share knowledge and documentation, could see what we wanted to do and all wanted to be part of our journey. I should just say that the paper contains a lot of links to all these organisations and software and so forth that I've mentioned today as well.
You touched on employing an external project manager. So I guess if you have to do it all again, do you know what you would do differently in terms of writing it? That sounds like a triple challenge.
I think that the external project manager was absolutely the best way to go. We just did not have the skills within the team, but I think that we should have supported the project manager better internally. So where it kind of went awry, and I didn't really perhaps make this clear, was that because we had a small team and they were maxed up, they didn't have the capacity to support her with the internal business knowledge. And so she became quite demanding of that. She needed that information and that they thought she should do the whole thing. But she needed them to provide the internal business knowledge. Well, for example, ANU provided all their ATOM documentation for the implementation, and the West Australian Archives did similarly. And they also offered any support that we needed to. We had one handover meeting where the project manager and I spoke with both of them extensively, and they talked us through a whole range of issues, answered a whole lot of questions, and said, we're here if you need help. Yes. Yes, it's part of the library. We relied very much on the advice and support of our ICS colleagues in regard to that, and I can't actually give you an answer on that. Well, I think that a year or two ago I would have said it's not likely, but because of this project we've got a couple of academics who are actually including us in any of their grant proposals, and including the library as an essential part funding. And also, what was really gratifying too is that we got feedback from the chair of the research infrastructure committee, who was very excited to actually get a request from the library, because he said it was so rare to get anything from humanities, and certainly from the library. They more likely in the past had funded equipment and scientific equipment and so forth. So we've actually been encouraged to look at applying again, continue the work. But the great debate is in the orange room after a 5-minute break. So no sneaking away.